Hello and welcome to China Focus. I'm Shelley Zhang. Now, last week, the Chinese Communist Party picked its new leadership lineup, but among the top 7 spots in the Politburo Standing Committee, there was one conspicuous absence. That's of the Political and Legislative Affairs Committee, or the PLAC. Now, the PLAC has been translated in several different ways, but no matter what you call it, for the past decade, it's represented the single biggest challenge to the leadership of Jintao and Jiabao. But after the Bo Xilai scandal earlier this year, everything changed. To talk about this, we have Jason Ma and Matt Gnezda. So let's talk about what the PLAC is.
So the PLAC, the Political and Legislative Affairs Committee, is this sort of second center of power in the Communist Party. And it controls the Ministry of State Security, it controls the Public Security Bureau and the police, it controls the Ministry of Justice and the Supreme People's Court and Procuratorate, which is tied to the courts. So this would be like one department or one official in the United States controlling the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Supreme Court. So basically, this guy who had been in charge before, Zhou Yongkang, for the last 5 years, he basically could use domestic intelligence to monitor who was doing what. He controls who gets arrested because he controls the police. He controls the Ministry of Justice, so which cases get prosecuted, and controls the court, so he controls what the verdicts of the cases are. It's an enormous amount of power, an incredible amount of power. And it's a huge deal that all of a sudden this PLAC is no longer on the Politburo Standing Committee.
Well, let's talk about how did the PLAC get on the Standing Committee? Because it wasn't always on there.
It wasn't. I mean, before 2002, and it wasn't there. But in 2002, what happened in 2002 is Jiang Zemin have to kind of give up his power and transfer his power to Jintao. But when he gave us power, he has to put the person inside this powerful circle, the standing committee, to maintain his agenda, like prosecuting Falun Gong, like something others. And so the way he doing it is he increased the standing member from 7 to 9 and add 2 new roles to this standing committees. One is the propaganda associate kind of a committee, and which is controlled by his people. Another is this PLAC, which is at the first time is done by Luo Gan. That's the person who closely follow him to prosecution Falun Gong. And then following kind of Luo Gan, in the 5 years ago, he chose Zhou Yongkang. So Zhou Yongkang just followed the same agenda. But this whole thing just exploded to the point where it's out of control. And
well, I think you make a good point, because really the reason Jiang moved the PLAC and the head of propaganda to the Standing Committee was to persecute Falun Gong, because Jiang had to continue to carry out that agenda. I mean, ultimately, that's the reason. And so for the last 10 years, though, that group, particularly the PLAC, has grown and grown and grown. Like every year, basically, it's gotten bigger. Last year, the budget for the PLAC was $111 billion. That's more than the entire national defense, which is only $106 billion for China. So it's huge, it's massive. It's not just for Falun Gong, but also for protests and other types of things going on. But
well, the budget that you talked about is actually the budget for maintaining social stability.
Right.
Right, but that's
controlled.
That's a role. I mean, basically, the PLAC carry the banner of maintain stability, but they do kind of because the head of the PLAC, Zhou Yongkang, is in this standing committee, which is the most powerful kind of a central kind of committee in China. So once you are there, you have unlimited resource to carry your attention. So Zhou Yongkang just make use of every single case to dump money into his system, into this PLAC system. Just like one example, the blind legal activist Chen Guangcheng, which is flee to U.S. Embassy in Beijing in May, and then went to get to New York, NYU. He is kind of really prosecuted by this PLAC system. Just to monitor himself, this blind person, they send hundreds of people around him, spend tens of millions of renminbi on him, which is like millions of dollars on him to monitor him. So why this PLAC is so powerful, can dump so much money on one blind people? It's just because Zhou Yongkang controlled it. He tried to grab money to his system, and because right now, whoever can give money to his people, he will have followers. So when he is there, he can really grab money down to this system, and then he has a huge follower. And then he built a second power center in China.
So how come nobody can stop him? You're saying Zhou Yongkang, he's in the Politburo Standing Committee, so he's very powerful, but there are 8 other people in the Politburo Standing Committee. They couldn't stop him from putting, more resources into the PLAC?
The one major reason is in this kind of a non-member committee, a lot of them are really kind of belongs to the Jiang's faction, and Jiang's factions probably generally have the same idea. And meanwhile, the core is Hu Jintao, and Hu is pretty weak. He didn't really stand up and stop what Zhou Yongkang is doing. But until what Bo Xilai thing was really revealed, and indeed, everything Bo Xilai did, there is a kind of something behind him is it's Zhou Yongkang. So that's the moment they realize. Maintain this kind of thing in their standing committee is kind of disrupt the stability of the control of this Communist Party, because it just kind of one part just grow too powerful.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Bo Xilai, because the Bo Xilai affair really changed, this whole history of what's going to happen with the PLAC, because very likely Bo Xilai was going to be promoted to basically take over after Zhou Yongkang retired as head of the PLAC. So if Wang Lijun hadn't fled to the consulate and Bo Xilai hadn't been taken down, then it's very likely Bo Xilai would have made it to the Politburo Standing Committee and then taken over. And then we might not see the PLAC being reduced from 9 to 7. It may stay at 9 with Bo Xilai up there. But of course, that didn't happen, and that sort of really changed the whole makeup of the Politburo Standing Committee. And it basically made this committee, by taking the PLAC out of the Standing Committee. I mean, look, there's been a PLAC since 1958, but it wasn't really so powerful until 2002, when Jiang brought it to the as a department to the Standing Committee level. When it's not at the Standing Committee, it's like the PLAC is responsible for implementing whatever decisions the people at the top want. But when the PLAC is at the Standing Committee level, it becomes part of the decision-making process. And that's the difference. And now, it's no longer the case.
Well, we're talking about a Communist Party organ that's controlling the entire legal system in China.
Right. I mean, it's a piece of the Communist Party that controls the state or the government. So, in order for the courts to run independently, in order for the Ministry of Justice to be independent, the PLAC basically, you can't have it. It has to really be dismantled. So I think until we see it being really dismantled, then you won't really be able to see any kind of meaningful political reform.
Right. I mean, if both the police, the prosecutor, and the court report to one person, how can they be independent? So, yeah. So I guess get rid of that. Out of this highest power center, the Standing Committee, open up some options. Before that, there is no chance for the court to be independent. Now they open up these options, but whether they can really realize the independency of the legal system, it's still a question, because that depends on whether the 7 members agree on it or whether they are going to implement it or not.
So a lot of legal scholars, lawyers in China have been saying you really need an independent judicial system. You need an independent legal system for China to function as a kind of normal law-abiding society. But you're saying it won't happen until the PLAC is dismantled.
Well, that's one piece of it.
But if the PLAC, it seems to me that the Communist Party would want to keep the PLAC because that gives them so much control over that entire system.
Well, I mean, look, it's very clear that the party itself is bent on keeping control over the courts. Actually, in 2007, Luo Gan, who at that time was, about to step down from his position as head of PLAC, he said, he argued that enemy forces are trying to separate the Communist Party and so on. He said, there's no question about where the legal departments should stand. The correct political stance is where the party stands. And that just highlights exactly what the Communist Party is about. So in theory, they could dismantle the PLAC but still have some other way of controlling the courts. And then they could basically forestall all legal reform anyway. So dismantling the PLAC is one piece that they have to accomplish, but it's not the only thing that they need to do to have real reform.
My understanding is it's when they dismantle this PLAC, it's not like they want to establish independent kind of judiciary system. It's more about they found that this particular organization or committee becomes so powerful and threatens the stability of this kind of standing committee. Power. So when they kind of get rid of that from the standing committee, so that all the 7 members can work together to control all the judiciary, legal, and police system. So the party still maintain their control of everything. If you go to the website of the Chinese kind of court system, the first sentence is we responsible for the party. Basically, they really kind of still answer only for the party.
So it was really a political decision, you're saying, that was to kind of, because of this power struggle, because there was like a threat to the stability of the top leadership.
Right. And of course, I mean, I can't kind of deny that's something positive. And it leaves some kind of possibility for the court have something kind of independent from what they did before. And also, the amount of money dumped into the system can maybe reduced because right now the 7 members have to kind of balance the spending to every part instead of one member keeps saying like, give me money, I need to crack this, I need to crack that. So,
but I think, all that being said, I think the fact is, as long as the Communist Party is in charge, no matter what they do with the PLAC or other departments, as long as the party is in charge, it will be extremely difficult to have real, meaningful legal reform or other kinds of political reform.
Right, I agree. Basically, they have to maintain their control on everything, every part, police, prosecutor, court, everything, so that they can implement their intention. Otherwise, I mean, there is kind of, if anything out of their control, the whole thing can just collapse because they by themselves is not legally selected kind of party.
Okay, well, thank you both for joining us today and talking about the PLAC and legal and reform in China. For more on this topic and other issues in China, join us at ntd.tv. Thanks for watching.